Welcome, Larry and the Big Man with Dave Ricchini. Looking forward to week 2 of NFL football. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, we want to thank Brian Hess and One Team Media and Ryan for the great job producing these shows and our strategic partnership with Odyssey Pittsburgh 93.7 The Fan with Michael Spacciapoli. Jay?
Also, Rourke Automotive, they're our title sponsor, opened up a new building in Cannonsburg, and you need to see a 200,000 square foot, 4 floors, all new cars are on display inside. But Dave, that's the one new thing they got going, but I've said all along, great service from the beginning to the end of the process. Rourke's behind you. They do a great job, and thank you for being a part of it, Dave.
All right, gentlemen, time for the quick hits. Jay, where do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Ravens and the Bills on Sunday night that we saw. For me, when you look at a running game, and this is after watching a Steelers game, and we're talking about the offensive and defensive lines and, maybe the Jets having a better, then you watch the game that we saw on Sunday night, and you saw Derrick Henry at his finest, right? I think it's the first time somebody with a 40 points on the night, 230-some-odd yards rushing has ever lost. I think it was 277-0. You can make it 277-1. First time ever. Full control of the game, but you always knew it was dueling. It was between Jackson and between Allen. I don't think you can leave either one of them an opening. And the Derrick Henry fumble, and we went back and forth on this, the Derrick Henry fumble for having such an outstanding game and coughs it up, and Buffalo took full advantage of that. I think you're seeing that's the kind of talent that to get through the AFC. To get through the AFC, you better have all parts of your game working. And you still get exposed, as we saw both their defenses the other night. So, to me, great game. Great way to finish off week, towards that end of week 1. Great game.
So, yeah, Steeler fans were concerned about the defense being porous against the run. Look at those two teams,
right?
At a high level, same thing.
And Buffalo doesn't have the – Derrick Henry is a different world.
Did you see the workout video?
I did see that. Yeah, I get it.
There's a reason he's breaking away from safeties in the open field.
It's why you don't ever see him go low. He just runs in his legs, and then you got linebackers and D-backs having to step up on it. I did see that video. It was pretty good.
Jay's workout video, Dave?
Pushing
I have my girls
cars in.
That's right.
Which high school was that?
It was Mount Lebanon High School. That's right. Mount Lebanon High School. That's right. So my girls are very happy basketball was over because I had them run, always running hills. But it's truly, I bet it's a great thing for all athletes
Walter
to do.
Payton did it.
Yeah, it did. So, yeah, I did think. But Derrick Henry, wow. I mean, on full display, what he's able to do.
How bad do you think he feels, even though he had this tremendous game, but at the last minutes, he fumbles and basically gives Buffalo the win?
Yeah, I think that's the up and downs of an athlete being, this sport. And we've always talked about, even when we're calling hockey games, you could have a game the next night. Football, it's another week, unless you get the Thursday night game, if you're called lucky or not. But it's a long week in between games, and you want to get that out of that taste out of your mouth. Pretty amazing though, the night that he had and then coughs up the fumble. But I do believe 2 quarterbacks that make it happen. They don't have the running game that they did, but Cook, to me, they just have complementary pieces to go along with what Josh Allen does.
Josh Allen, 250 yards passing, 2 touchdowns rushing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's a game.
So if anybody has any question about those two teams and their talent and their quarterbacks, at least that was a battle. What happened to Detroit, Dave?
Well, I think it was last week I said they were my Super Bowl contender, and I'm starting to question that one. But I think I did say it depends on what happens, how they replace the coordinators. You saw, Aaron Glenn make his debut for the Jets against the Steelers. Ben Johnson in Chicago now, and I think they sorely missed him on Sunday. If you watch that offense, years past they would scheme plays to get their guys open. The running game was great with Gibbs and Montgomery. They barely averaged over 2 yards a carry. Both of those guys. Gibbs just looked mediocre. Goff looked lost back there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something to look at moving forward. Can that offense rebound? Because their defense would make plays with Hutchinson in years past, but they rely on their offense to get them leads so that those defensive ends could tee off on the quarterback. And if they're struggling offensively, it's going to be a long season for Detroit.
Green Bay on Sunday, you got to see all their offensive weapons again, another thing on full display. Young receivers, they just made it happen. And Josh Jacobs in the backfield, a pounding, strong running back who can make you miss. They look really good, and they took advantage of a Detroit team that just looked like they weren't ready in that given day. And Dave talked about the coordinators, but I do find it amazing that young and being Super Bowl, looking like out of the NFC. You got to get through Philly and all that means, but Green Bay is one of those teams. I have to say, I did change. Dave talked about his Super Bowl pick. I made my Super Bowl pick too. I had said that I initially had Buffalo. Dave reminded me that I changed because I went to Baltimore. I changed. I said I changed because I watched Hard Knocks and I didn't like it. I didn't like how they came across in Hard Knocks. So I made my switch. I switched to Baltimore, and here it is. And they let me know that it was a mistake. But I'm still both those teams. But I'm going to let Dave know I did the same thing. I made a choice, and I changed it over a TV show. And I might regret that.
I picked Buffalo. Let's talk about the Bengals and the Browns. The Browns should have won that game, but in typical Cleveland fashion, the wheels came off. What happened?
Yeah, missed 36-yard field goal, which would have given the lead. The Browns were driving late in the game. Flacco hit the guy in the hands, interception. So they had their chances. Again, it's the same thing for the Bengals. Last year they lost in the opener against the Patriots. This year they should have lost. I mean, they had troubles again protecting Joe Burrows. There was one possession where he was sacked 3 straight times, 2 by Myles Garrett. So it's the same thing as the receivers. A lot. T. Higgins 3 catches, Jamar Chase 2 catches. But it's a win, and that's been a struggle for Zach Taylor and that Bengals team in recent years. Those slow starts, you saw them kind of address their preseason this year, playing the starters some, which they had in years past. So they're going to need to pick it up offensively, but yeah, the Browns will be the Browns, and they gave another one away.
I think this goes to when you look at special teams and how lucky the Steelers are with Bosworth, right? Which we all understand that. To come in calm and make a 60-yarder to be the game winner, you look at how there's a missed field goal in Cleveland. They lose. I also said they didn't talk about it enough the other night. When Baltimore was up and they would have made it a 16-point lead, they missed the extra point. Wasn't talked about much at the time, but it comes down to it. They would have needed 2 two-point conversions. To me, special teams is so key. In some places it's an afterthought, but it's not. And how important it is from long snapper to holder to punter and your kicker. So to me, they gave the game away, and Cleveland would have been there with a missed field goal. And I'm not sure, some of those guys, I'm not sure the kicker's still there in Cleveland by the next game.
They ought to get Ben Sauls. Remember the Pitt kicker who was Steelers?
Yeah.
I think he's going to show up on a team. I love what Tomlin said, though, again, worth repeating, about Chris Boswell. Quote, "Our kicker is a serial killer. He's got a low pulse rate, and he's ready to deliver." So to your point, Jay, that is such a huge factor to have on your football team.
I will say it's not even putting it down what it is when you're a kicker in the NFL, in college, anything, high school. If you have that, the weight of your whole team on your shoulders when you run out to the field, and it's all right there, and they have to be that mentally strong to get over it. If you talk about what part, they got to be in that. They have to do the work to be able to kick the ball and do what they need to do, but they got to be between the ears. Like if you falter in any given moment when it comes down to it, everybody's looking at you. And guys who are beating their heads for 60 minutes, right? I mean, that's a tough part.
The kicker.
Yeah, but you also know why. Again, that's why you're blessed to have the best kicker in the game here in Pittsburgh.
How many games in the NFL come down to that last opportunity? It's remarkable.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, honestly, wouldn't be surprised. Like maybe you give a guy another week. You can't miss another one. They're not only do they maybe lose a game, but their job's on the line. How they make their money, and the great ones find a way to get through.
Well, plus it's the Steelers. You're thinking, okay, we got to get to the 45-yard line to give us the chance. That wasn't the case years ago. It was okay. You got to get inside 50 yards for it to be a realistic chance to make the field goal. Now it's not just the Steelers. The Cowboys kicker Mayer too. I mean, there are a few of them, though. There's only a few of them, and that is a difference maker when you have one of those kickers.
Well, how about Buffalo? Buffalo brings the guy in. He's only there for 2 days. Took the red eye to get in.
They had a great interview with him after the game.
Yeah, it was good.
Josh Allen giving him, he goes, I didn't know the guy we were talking to.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent. But Nick Folk with the Jets looked like he had the body shape of Babe Ruth, and he missed that extra point. So, and then that cost them because they couldn't make it up with a 2-point conversion.
You're chasing them. Then you're chasing. Right. And then I can't stand the 2-point. I understand the numbers that go with 2-point conversions and the analytics that go with it, but sometimes you're sitting there going, really? You know, that's because then if you're a guy that bets, and some people do.
Really?
If you're a betting person, then you're sitting there, as soon as you see a missed extra point and you look at and you know the line and you know the numbers or the over-under, you're like, really? Did that just happen? Right? That's what it's like. Or the worst is over-unders when you bet the over-unders. And
well, they got those charts, right?
Yeah, they do.
Situational. Should we go, not go for it? All right.
Big proud about that.
For the big man blitz.
Okay. Well, this is something that Dave and Larry came up with, but it's something that kind of sours me throughout a week when I watch it or I watch it in a game, and it started.
Sour's bad.
Sour's a bad word.
You know, Jay, sour is a bad thing.
You don't want to make.
I'm going to start. Look, opening week, first game of the week of the season, and the Eagles, Jalen Carter spits at Dak Prescott, right? So, and then it comes out that Prescott spat at him. I would highly doubt that Dak Prescott, I know there's footage of him walking through. The last thing Dak Prescott, I believe, is going to do is spit at Jalen Carter. Because Jalen Carter probably would rip his head off if he really did do that, right? I mean, he got kicked out anyway. He's going to get kicked out for a reason. I don't believe it. So to do that, first of all, we all know it's what are you doing? What is that about? Not only did it happen there, then it happens in the Florida versus South Florida game. Luckily, for the Eagles side, they still won the game, but they lost their best player on the defensive side. All your game planning changes, and so did Dallas's. They benefited from it. Then you go to college, and the guy, I think it's Brendan Bett for Florida, spits in the face of a South Florida player. Huge. That cost them. Because not only did they get the 15 yards, it came in, they end up losing the game. I don't get what I've been in college football, been in all that play, and hockey. I've never seen. I think it's happened, and with the camera angles too now, with high def, you can't get away with. There's no room for anybody to do that, nor should you be doing it. But I think it's probably one of there's a lot of bad things that go on in a game of football. The spitting in somebody's face, that's right up there. And disrespectful. It's bad for the game. Anybody say, I bet your teammates, your coaching staff has to address a player that does that. And as I said, I do not believe Dak Prescott. I don't know Dak Prescott. I'm just going by his interviews. I'm sure he's not going to walk through his offensive line and spit at Jalen Carter. No way. I don't believe it. And I said, Jalen Carter would have ripped his head off if he did that. I guarantee it would have been something quick. That's my blitz for this week. It'll find it unbelievable.
It might have disintegrated into a Myles Garrett swinging a helmet at Mason Rudolph, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. Now, look, I mean, like we said, we've seen a lot of bad things in all sports. I mean, there's been swinging sticks in hockey, and there's a lot of things that are disrespectful that go on that line and what's wrong and what's, cheap or whatever. There's something about the spitting thing that, I don't know. It just takes it to a different...
woman that tried to steal the ball back from the guy who got it.
We should have that clip to fill it.
That was bad. Well, the thing
she's being tortured.
Yeah, I know.
Rightfully so.
Did you see they have a Halloween costume for him?
Oh yeah.
And already.
Well, that's the big man's blitz. Yes. Thank you, Jay. No, let's talk about Seattle coming to Pittsburgh, the home opener at Acrisure Sunday at 1. And Dave, first of all, explain, how did you become a diehard Seattle Seahawks fan?
So I have a picture from when I was 6 years old.
Growing up?
Growing up.
Where?
When I was 6, I was growing up, yeah.
No, I mean where?
Oh, outside of Pittsburgh, an hour outside.
What's the name of that town?
Blairsville.
All right.
Blairsville. So I had a Kurt Warner jersey, and back then there was no internet, so it was the J.C. Penney's catalog. I'm sure I had it. Probably like the logo, the colors at some point, and it stuck with it. My middle brother's a Cowboys fan. He stuck with it. My oldest brother's
What's going on in Blairsville?
It's the water. Yeah, the Conemaugh River. So have liked them my entire time, never swayed. Have been through a lot. Was at Super Bowl 40 whenever the Steelers played the Seahawks, surrounded by Steelers fans. But yeah, so it's been a lot.
He's loyal though. He hasn't jumped. He didn't jump.
Jumped.
I mean, he's a Steeler. He's got the Steelers side, but he didn't jump when it was going bad or anything like that.
So what happened to Seattle in their opener against San Francisco? They lose, but how were the details of the game? Were they real competitive? Did they have a chance? What happened?
Yeah, the big story for Seattle coming this season was the quarterback change. Traded Geno Smith to the Raiders, brought in Sam Darnold, paid him about the same amount of money. He's a little bit younger, coming off of what Sam Darnold did last year with the Vikings. And then the other big move was offensive coordinator. They hired Clint Kubiak from the Saints and said, okay, we're going to emphasize running the football this year. Offensively, they only scored 13 points. In fact, if you look at the box scores on Sunday, the Seattle Mariners outscored the Seahawks 18-13. So that's all you need to know about that. Yeah, think about that one.
Wow.
The running game, Kenneth Walker never really took off. Darnold played okay. He was a game manager, and that's kind of what they brought him in to be. Jackson Smith-Njigba played really well at wideout. Defensively, they played well enough to win. I mean, they limited Christian McCaffrey to 3.1 yards per carry. He had 69 yards on 22 carries. It came down to 2 plays defensively, both by one of their cornerbacks, Reek Woolen. Ricky Pearsall had a long catch down the sideline, and then they're down. Seattle was up 3 late in the game, and Brock Purdy was rolling out, threw it in the end zone, and their third-string tight end, Tonjes, went up and again beat Reek Woolen for the game-sealing touchdown, although Seattle went down inside the 10-yard line, and Sam Darnold fumbled the ball. So they absolutely had chances to win, but the defense played really well, and it's going to be a good test for the Steelers because, one thing that we didn't talk about Tuesday was the Steelers running game.
Yeah.
And how it was going to play out. That Jalen Warren, Najee Harris gone. Jalen Warren gets a new contract with them. They bring in Kenneth Gainwell. They bring in Caleb Johnson from Iowa. How are they going to distribute the carries? Well, what we saw on Sunday was Kenneth Gainwell out-snapped Warren. And Warren had more rushes, but the running game was they didn't really commit to it early on. And that's one thing Seattle does well. They beefed up their defensive line. They signed DeMarcus Lawrence from Dallas in the offseason. Leonard Williams re-signed a couple years ago. They got some young edge rushers. And in the secondary, they have some good defensive backs, a couple good safeties, and Ernest Jones, their middle linebacker, who they got from the Tennessee Titans last year, is a key run stopper. So
he's on it. He's on it.
Yeah.
100%, Dave. That's impressive.
So what are your feelings about a team traveling west to east?
Playing early because 1 o'clock to them is actually.
Yeah. It's something they struggle with early on. That when Pete Carroll came on board, they did pretty well in those scenarios. It's going to be interesting to see how Mike McDonald, the head coach now for the Seahawks, was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. So maybe he's got some insight too on the Steelers. I know it's a regimen change there for the Steelers, but so he knows how the Steelers operate. He's going to have them ready to go. But yeah, it's always tough, and I can't imagine being a Seahawks fan in Seattle and have to wake up at 10 a.m. to watch that game.
I don't think their numbers are ever good when you don't want to go 0-2. It's probably history has proven. You start to go 0-2 early in the year, it's not a good look. So that'll be more of a desperate team coming in here. I think the Steelers are going to be desperate as far as trying to get the dominating feeling that you want to have as an offensive and defensive line. They got to get back. They got to get that, and they got to gain. I mentioned early in the week on Tuesday, film session after a bad outing or whatever, whether you could have a great game, or just like we talked about Derrick Henry and coughing the ball up late. The one thing in a film room when you go to it, and when the play is that it didn't go well. Well, that offensive line will start there. They're going to go through a lot with that this week, and how hard or heavy they come down on it. If there's a pride thing, and who's the guys are in front of you, who's in your locker room, they need to right the ship, and they need to do it quick because Dave, you mentioned on the defensive side, it's not going to get easy. It's going to be tough with Seattle coming in this week.
I guarantee they're going to be watching what Breece Hall did against the Steelers front seven, and they're going to come in and try to run the ball. The other thing too, the other storyline, DK Metcalf going against his former team and just traded him. I watched DK pretty much every single game he's played with the Seahawks. He is an emotional guy. You didn't see it come out Sunday in his opener with the Steelers, but he is an emotional guy. The Seattle defenders will try to get underneath his skin. He's taken a lot of, 15-yard penalties over the years, so we'll see how that transpires too. But, he's going to be out to try to get back at his former team.
Well, it should be decent weather Sunday. 1 o'clock at Acrisure. Get to your seats early. Here we go. Starts before kickoff. They work really hard to get people in, and they put on a show leading up to kickoff. But, we're creatures of habit. They showed, did you see the post from last Sunday's game? One of the reporters, 10 minutes before kickoff, they showed MetLife Stadium, and there's hardly anybody in the stands, and they all came in, and obviously it's sold out. Steelers fans, Jets fans, a lot of Steeler fans in that crowd as usual.
Travels so well.
There won't be so many Seahawks fans. Will you be in the stands with your
I'll be
Seahawks
working.
cap?
I'll be working this week, and I will not be. I'll be there in spirit.
We'll send pics, Dave.
Thanks.
All right, let's talk about the game itself. I think it'll be interesting to see if they can repair the holes on defense.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at the talent that you have, and what all the changes they made defensively, and look, that'll get. It's about winning battles. I think you even heard Mike Tomlin at halftime, coming out of halftime, what was going, what they didn't like and what they expect to be different. I think he's just going to command. That's about winning battles. That's what it is. Up front on the offensive line. Look, you got to understand. When you have somebody, your quarterback. We talked about Jones. We talked about the left tackle. All that goes with that. They got to win battles. And if you win battles, you win it. Everybody takes care of their job one at a time. On the defensive side, if you're, defensive tackle, linebackers, open up so the linebackers can make plays, whatever it might be. I expect way more out of. I just think when you're getting beat physically, that's something the Steelers don't want, and I don't think they'll accept that this week. I mentioned being in the film room; they're not going to accept being outmanned or out-muscled, if you will, and it's outworked at the same time. That's what it is. It's an attitude. It's being outworked. It's being out-muscled, and you could play 20 plays if you're on the defensive side. And those 20 plays are going against you, you get worn down. If you're 20 plays on the offensive side, they're just gaining energy, driving over top of you. They took Breece Hall against them. Dave mentioned it before, too. When they ran the ball that way, that's deflating for a defense. Again, I expect that the Steelers have to be completely different, and the attitude from the defense got to set the tone for me, in my opinion, when they start this Sunday.
How do you see it playing out, Dave?
The thing, too, that, Justin Fields had 48 yards rushing against the Steelers. Sam Darnold is not the same threat to run the ball. He can move a little bit. I would expect the Steelers to come out and try to apply more pressure to Darnold. I mean, he was the guy that, this was years ago with the Jets against the Patriots, that said he was seeing ghosts out there. You remember that one?
Forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't. When they signed him, that's the first thing I thought of.
I seen ghosts in Pittsburgh.
So
he'll never lose.
I think that they're going to come out and try to apply some pressure. You're going to see some different blitz packages and route him off his cages, because if he has time to sit back there, he's an accurate passer. But even in the game on Sunday against the 49ers, he was missing some wide open guys. So I think that's going to be the game plan. I think both teams are going to try to establish a run. I think you're going to see a lot more than 10 or 11 carries from Jaylen Warren. You're going to see a lot more carries from Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I think it's going to be. I wouldn't anticipate the high-scoring game you saw from this past Sunday when both teams are in their 30s. I think you're going to be back more to the high teens, low 20s.
We hope he sees the ghost of Jack Lambert.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm going to add one more thing to Dave said. I got to tell you, everybody wants to establish the run. I watched the Green Bay game. They didn't run the ball that well with Josh Jacobs, but they kept going. But they made plays. That's why Aaron Rodgers wins the game because of what he was able to do.
Right.
If you don't have a quarterback that can make those plays, and question mark will be out for Sam Darnold, that makes it different. They got to stay with it, but you have to have the ability. That goes back to we talked about the offensive line, Larry, and what you said. They got to do a better job protecting against the line that's going to come at him, because, again, he got hit a couple. Rodgers got pounded a few times there, and they're big hits, and that's certainly a big part that has to change on top.
All right. Before the weekend, we got to talk about the backyard brawl, 3:30 kickoff in Morgantown. Morgantown stunned by Ohio over the weekend, a MAC team. Pitt was playing a MAC team. By the way, in the third quarter, Central Michigan was only a touchdown behind because Eli Holstein threw a pick late in the first half. It resulted in them getting back in the game. Michigan scores a touchdown. They come out, score again. So you're down by only 7 in the third quarter. You start thinking, but to their credit, then they pulled away. Didn't happen for West Virginia. So how do you see the matchup with Pitt, West Virginia?
I think, yeah, coming off the loss, West Virginia is going to be a little more amped up now with these rivalry games in general. I'm a Penn State grad, so I've been on the Pitt-Penn State side of it. Last year, I went down to Morgantown when Penn State played the Mountaineers in Morgantown. To me, I wish these teams, I know this is the last of a 4-year stretch and they're going to pick it back up in 2029, but I wish these teams would play every year.
Yeah.
I want to put Penn State up because you go to a game in Happy Valley, Pitt's going to travel up there, Penn State plays here. Those
It's
games,
a great atmosphere.
they're always packed. They're sold out. And, we're getting to Penn State this weekend, but when you play the Florida Internationals, you're not selling out those games.
How about when they renewed the rivalry, Penn State, 72,000 people. Same thing when West Virginia and that rivalry renewed, which is going to take a hiatus. Quick side note, interviewed athletic director Alan Green at Pitt. He has reached out to Penn State trying to find a way to renew that rivalry down the road. But you're right. Those games are fun. They're fun for the fan base. You fill up the stadium here in Pittsburgh, and it's just a blast. I understand the politics of not wanting to do it. So, Jay, what do you see?
I feel the same way. I think going to those games when you've been, I remember one of the ones I was at, it was snowing. It was Heinz Field at the time, and you see that the atmosphere and what it's about. I don't think those rivalries should go away either. I feel exactly the same way. And why wouldn't? It's a natural. I'm not sure who's on. Obviously, maybe Penn State wants nothing to do. I don't know that. I don't know the workings of it, but to not have Pitt and Penn State play against each other, I think that's too bad too. That doesn't make sense to me. And as far as the schedule, who's really Dave will talk about it coming up, but Penn State's playing Villanova. I mean, whatever. I don't like that they're getting away from something that's a natural draw in this area. State of Pennsylvania, great. Penn State, Pitt, West Virginia, Pitt. It should be games that are on the schedule.
Rich Rodriguez said that 13-9 loss to Pitt way back when they were ranked second in the country and were going to the national championship game was his Titanic, quote, as a coach.
Yeah.
Even though they lost last Saturday, they are going to be a wounded bear for this game against Pitt. They're going to pull out all the stops, and they have, 81 new players?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that
They take a while to gel.
Yeah, I find certainly that's such a wild thing for me to think that 81 new players. Imagine you're in a program. What goes with that? It's amazing how that happened. I know Deion Sanders did that. Colorado, I don't know the number of new players he brought in, but that's a wholesale change in NIL money and everything that goes with that. But Dave, you had mentioned before, we talked off air, maybe they lost their running back to Ohio State. So
yeah.
There's a lot of that going on, and we've covered those in certain days. But 81 new players, and again, losing the way they did, again, that's a week of practice you really wouldn't want to be part of early on.
These can be season-altering games. As you mentioned, the Rich Rodriguez example you just brought up. I remember this was a couple years ago when Trace McSorley and Saquon Barkley were at Penn State. They came into Heinz Field at the time and lost that crazy game. That probably kept Penn State out of the national championship.
Yeah, back then. And being a Penn State grad, the fan base is huge. They're second in the country. So then they play who?
Villanova this week. Yeah, they've had a cupcake schedule thus far. Florida International this past weekend, and they have not looked good. And so this is their last final tune-up against Villanova Saturday before they have a bye week, and then they open up against here's Oregon. And I don't know if you saw what
the NIL money in Oregon and what they do with the players. They save each jersey from every game, and then they store them. They give them to the players. They give them. I mean.
It's a big thing.
Crazy money.
It's a whole different world. We again, you talked about Villanova coming into town. First of all, there's a program that went away. Villanova's program went bye-bye. I don't know how many years ago it was, and it's back in. So they're coming into Penn State, but I laugh sometimes at that because I went back to that South Florida game. Florida paid South Florida $500,000 to play that game. We're going to pay you $500,000 to come to our building, and that's what they do. We know the early games give a smaller program, more money, the notoriety that comes with it, and then South Florida beats Florida, which is the greatest thing. I love when you hear stories like that happen. So, because it's like a kick. The biggest one we mentioned before was Appalachian State beating Michigan.
Right.
So, unheard of. But it kind of can run. It can, you got to be careful a little bit with that. But I'm sure Villanova going to make some money coming in. Good for their players to get a taste of what that would be like to play Penn State at home. But again, you always have to be careful and not let your guard down. And Dave said they haven't been playing that well.
Speaking of billboard material, we'll close with a final note. When the coach reinforces his own billboard material. Right?
Yeah, that was Oregon, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy had a quote about, well, they pay a lot for their team and this and that, and they're not going to be able to keep their quarterback next year, Dante Hall, who's a first-year starter for them. And Oregon took notice, and the final score last Saturday was 69-3.
Ouch.
And even Dan Lanning, the head coach at Oregon, said, yeah, it added some gas to the fire. So, I mean, listen, there's always going to be bulletin board material from players, but when the coach is providing it, maybe not the best idea.
Yeah, no, that's not a good idea. And I even thought, I believe even he went to his backups in the third quarter. It wasn't like he ran them up with his number ones. He went to his backups later in the game, which you got to do to be a little respectful, but a couple pick sixes and then the score runs up. And I'm sure that they were, I don't get the comments from coaches that have been around a long time either. I totally agree. And we know NIL money's out there. I understand what he's probably trying to get at. It's almost like you should put teams in categories. If you spend this much money, maybe you should be in this echelon and your schedule should be different. Then that's what he's trying to get at. But that's not going to, look at how the conferences are all blown up over all these years. Big East, everything's gone, right? It's all different. So I find it wild that that much money, but that's the world that this is in right now. And NIL money is huge for every program. And if you want to be successful, you got to pay. And that's the world we're in.
And Gundy's the guy that had the infamous quote years ago whenever the media was going after his players. He was I'm a man. I'm 40. Come after me. So that one worked. That was him. Same guy.
Yeah.
That one worked. This one didn't.
Now he's saying, look, I'm getting older. Go after somebody else. All right. Before we run out of clock, Steelers, Seahawks. Jay, who do you pick?
Yeah, they got to keep it going. I do think it's going to be tough because their defensive line, and Dave pointed out all the specs about them and what they're going to come in here. They don't want to go 0-2. The Steelers need to keep it running. I think this week at practice, and I tell you how important a film session this week is going to be, they're going to call out. You're going to get called out by your shortcomings in this last game. I expect a different attitude from both offensive and defensive lines. I think and I hope that they dominate, and Aaron Rodgers want to keep it going. You got to keep them upright, though. So I'm going to go with Steelers. I'm going to go with 24-10.
Dave.
Wow. This would be closer than that. I do think the Steelers are going to win. I'm going to say 16-13. I see a close game with field goals playing a difference. I think touchdowns will be hard to come by.
All right, I'm going to go Steelers 21-17.
Ooh.
So we'll see what happens Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. Want to thank One Team Media, Brian Hess, Ryan, who's producing great work. He should be doing feature films, but instead he's here with us. And also from 93.7 The Fan, Odyssey Pittsburgh, Michael Spacciopoli and our strategic partnership. Gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah, and Dave Rourke Automotive, we said, go visit his new business out in Cannonsburg. They moved Rourke Lexus out there, 200-square-foot building, state-of-the-art, 4 floors. All new vehicles are inside. Go take a look. They do a great job. Thank you.
All right, Larry and the Big Man and Dave Ricchini. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap.